Ladies and gentlemen, all right, this lecture that I'm about to do today is going to absolutely blow your mind. As I was going through this research myself, my mind was continuously being blown as to what is actually going on underneath this reality that is apparent through our five senses. There is so much more going on. And it is the return of the inorganic beings. They seek to come back to planet Earth. Our planet right now is currently being terraformed for this species and to usher in a whole new species in addition to that. So, ladies and gentlemen, the information that you will come across in this lecture, in this documentary, all of these ideas that I've placed for everybody to see, they are not directly reflecting my own beliefs. I always tell you, ladies and gentlemen, my primordial goal, my aim, is to extract truth, even if the truth goes against my own belief systems. My job is to ensure that I extract truth. The truth frequency is the only thing that I'm concerned about. Not my illusions, not my fantasies, not my preferences, not anybody else's preferences. I am not accumulating this information to make people happy. I'm accumulating this information to grow awareness, to expand consciousness into what actually this reality is all about. That is my mission. That is my goal that I've assigned myself. Now, here and there, of course, there are things that you need to take with a grain of salt. Apply your own wisdom, apply your own intelligence, discard what you feel does not resonate with you. Just because I am presenting this and this is a truth that I've come across doesn't mean that has to be your truth. But nonetheless, we know very well what we want to uncover. We know very well that we want to see what is really going on. We don't want to be told by the media, by the governments, by the elite as to what is going on and what is actually happening in our reality. We are not concerned with the normal broadcasting systems and channels that are going to tell us, hey, yes, this is what's going on, or they're going to fact check any kind of information that goes against that narrative. We are not concerned about that. That is the Maya, that is the illusion, that is the propaganda that we are trying to remove ourselves and focus on what is actually true. And in this video, that's exactly what I did. And this is going to be one of the most informative videos that I've ever dropped because there's so much information contained. So much information. I recommend that you have some kind of notepad as you go through this documentary or this video. Okay, the return of the inorganic beings. They have arrived. Not all of them have arrived, not the whole collective consciousness has arrived, but the platform has been built to usher them in. But we are still in the moment of time. We are still living in grace. We are still living in the period where we can do something about all of this. We can still do something about all of this. That's the beauty of the position that we're in right now as a collective species. We can actually do something about this. We're not at that phase, we're not at that stage where we are completely and utterly disarrayed, like there's nothing that we can do. We are doomed. We haven't reached that level yet, ladies and gentlemen. We have not yet reached that level. We can still do something about it. So without further ado, let's get going. Okay, expand your mind, expand your consciousness, allow your ears to be receptive to the truth, allow your ears to capture that which has not been said, read in between the lines as well. Allow your eyes to see what has been constantly hidden. All right, let's get going. So first and foremost, we got to start off with who the inorganic beings are. We have to know who they are. What do I mean when I refer to them as inorganic? Okay, so inorganic beings are entities that don't inherently belong to our dimension of existence. Okay, so I mean inherently, meaning they do not, they're not in resonance with planet Earth. Okay, there are some species actually that live within the Earth, right? I know this sounds ludicrous. I know this sounds out of like straight out of a sci-fi movie, but there are actually reports and actually there's evidence pointing towards a civilization existing within the core of the Earth. Now, obviously, it's not 100% proven, but there's a lot of ancient texts and also like some kinds of scientific evidence that proves that, you know, there's actually something going on in the core of our Earth, more than just lava. So these are beings or entities that dwell within the Earth and the core part. It's not in resonance with us terrestrial animals and human beings. It's not a plane of existence that they can inhabit continuously. All right, so they're not inherently belonging to this dimension. That is why they're inorganic. We, on the other side, are organic to this planet. We are in resonance with this planet. We can breathe the oxygen of this planet. We can eat the fruits and the vegetables and the meats, whatever it is that you desire, so long as, of course, it follows certain guidelines within the body to ensure that you don't get poisoned. But we've ascertained a whole range of things that we can consume that is literally created, sourced from the Earth. So we are in resonance with planet Earth. And these other beings are not in resonance with this planet. Some of them cannot breathe in our plane of existence. Some of them cannot inhabit it because the frequency is too dense or it's too different from theirs. So there are countless reasons as to why they are inorganic and they don't inherently belong to this planet. Nonetheless, so there are countless dimensions in the universe. We are currently in the fourth dimension of experience. Okay, so many people continuously say that we're in the third dimension. Yes, the world is 3D, right? But it's 3 dimensions of space, and the fourth being time. So time is the movement within those dimensions. So that is evidence that we're actually living in the fourth dimension and not the third dimension. Because many people I hear say, oh yeah, we're living in the 3D realm, we're living in the 3D physical world, the third dimension, and we're trying to get to the fourth. We're already in the fourth. We're already in the fourth dimension. 3 dimensions of space and 4 being time. So there are entities, right, that dwell in the 5th and 6th dimension that are thoroughly concerned with the events on our planet. So as I stated, a large chunk of these beings cannot be in resonance with our planet because they are existing in a totally different dimension that operates with its own laws of physics, right? We have our own laws of physics right now on this planet. Things like gravity, you know, things like velocity being contained within the speed of light. In the 5th and 6th dimension, all those don't exist. The sense the understanding, the concept of gravity itself does not exist in these dimensions that they inhabit. So there are differences between our dimension and the dimensions that they live in. Okay, and they are able, with their technology, some of them travel with their crafts, however it is that they observe us, but they are able to watch us from their perspective. And they are thoroughly concerned, ladies and gentlemen. They are really attentive to what is going on our planet. They have a rich history of showing concern throughout our planet, throughout different countries. There's so much evidence of people either getting abducted, people seeing strange crafts, people coming across ancient texts or hieroglyphics that depict the existence of these beings. And since the dawn of time, since the beginning of the human experience, since the birth of human civilization, there's been some kind of evidence pointing towards these beings being involved in that. They're actually involved in our evolution. A lot of them are involved in a negative way, and some of them are involved in a positive way. Now, please understand that we're living in a universe of duality, of polarity. It's something that I'll get into even deeper in the upcoming slides, but we're living in a universe of polarity, which means there is nothing that is completely and absolutely evil. There's always the duality. There's always the polarity. There's always something good within the bad, and within the bad, there's always something good. You see, that is the unconditional love of the Creator. That is the unconditional love of the universe, or God, however you want to term that primordial source of all that we experience. That energy, that being transcends all of this. Okay, so they've been referred to, these beings, right, that have been visiting our planet and showing concern as to what's going on and what transpires within our dimension. They've been referred to as the old ones. Okay, some people call them the old ones, some call them the Nephilims, some call them the Watchers. I mean, archaeologists have several images of skeletons that are abnormally large, like around 15, 16, 17 feet. And many claim that these were not just normal human beings. These were the ancient ones. These were the old ones, the Nephilims, the Watchers, the fallen angels. There are many names: the Baal, the Archons, demons, etc. There are so many names that these beings are termed through, you know. So I know many people debate and argue, is it aliens, is it demons, is it interdimensional beings, is it the Nephilims, or the Watchers, or the fallen angels? They all fall under the category of being inorganic to our realm of existence. Now, being inorganic doesn't mean they're inherently bad or evil, but it just means that they don't belong to this plane of existence. They belong to another plane of existence, but through their advanced technologies, they're able to intervene and interact with ours, but not in a physical way. They do it more through their ethereal realm, but we'll get into that a bit more. So what's not important is not what matters, is not what we call them. It's not the terms and the definitions that we give them. The most important thing to realize is that they actually exist. We need to recognize their existence. We're living in this narrative that we're alone in this universe. We are alone. Like humanity is the only intelligent species in this universe. We need to acknowledge, we need to move past that ignorant phase of thinking that we are just the only ones and moving into a new perspective and recognize that we are not alone. We are not alone. We've never been alone. So they're made mention in the Bible. If you look at certain scriptures, you'll see that, and you'll come across that evidence that there's so many portrayals of beings that were not human, that came from a different realm. Esoteric books as well, hieroglyphics of ancient civilizations like Egypt and Sumeria. If you look at their hieroglyphics, if you see how certain pharaohs are depicted, a lot of them have elongated heads. Now, some archaeologists will argue that that just shows that they are prominent and they have power. But it's also commonly known that within ancient Egypt, right, within the real evidence of that culture and of that civilization, not the information that is just fed to us by the archaeologists, right? The real information about that civilization point towards these pharaohs actually coming from a different realm. Some of them came from the stars. They were revered and spoken to like they were gods. Now, because we were at a primitive level of consciousness, or because, let me actually correct that, because our ancestors were way more intelligent than we are right now. The average human being cannot attain cosmic information. We rely on technology. If there's something that I want to know, the first thing that comes to mind is, let me search it through my phone. It's very random. It's very rare, sorry. It's quite rare to come across a human being that attains information within. They look within before they look without. Very rare. I would say 5% of people approach life in this manner, where they don't look towards the external world to attain information, they look within, right? So that is rare. Most human beings are unable to do that, but our ancestors could. Our ancestors could retain information that came from different realms, information that is beyond our dimension of experience. They could receive cosmic information because they were receptive. They were not victims of their own technologies. So there are various different stories and depictions, but no matter how different they may be, they all share similar characteristics, right? So if you're looking at Hindu tradition, or if you're looking at Christianity, if you're looking at Islam, if you're looking at Buddhism, they all share similarities. If you look at ancient Egypt, if you look at ancient Sumeria, if you look at what happened in Machu Picchu, if you look at the Incas, like there's a common thread. There are myriads of differences, right? But we're looking at the commonalities as to what they're essentially saying about these beings and who they are and the kind of influence that they've been having on our DNA and our experience of life as a collective species. So I've categorized them into 6 points. 6 points that I've come across, you know, where it seems as if the information correlates. So firstly, most of them are humanoid in appearance. So a lot of them look like us, but there are several that actually are distinctly different from us. Some have scaly skin, like the reptilians. Some are Nordic. We'll go into the next page where I'll show some images of that. But there's a large amount of them that are humanoid in appearance. So they look like us, you know, but there are slight variations. Some of them range from 4 feet in height. The grays are known to be really short and small in stature, some of them being 4 feet, 3 feet tall. But then we get the reptilians and the Nordics that stand over 7 feet tall, some even reaching 15 feet in height. So a lot of them have, you know, real like stature, you know, if you came across it, it would be really overwhelming to see such a huge species or specimen or like whatever you want to call it, extraterrestrial. So a lot of them, when they're depicted in the hieroglyphics, especially in ancient Egypt, a lot of them are quite big, you know, like if you see the pharaohs that are sitting down before the tombs and the entrances, a lot of them are like, if you calculate like the actual like statue and stuff, or the depiction of these pharaohs, they're around 17, 18 feet. And then there are other depictions of other people within the ancient Egypt civilizations, like that were next to the pharaohs. So we're not too certain who they were. Perhaps they were helpers, perhaps they were or like just part of the society, but they were next to the pharaohs, and they were average height, you know, the average height of a human being. But then the pharaohs were always much bigger. So of course the archaeologists states that no, this is because it's showing their prominence, it's showing their importance to the civilization. But you know, there's evidence to prove that perhaps they were actually giants. They were giants back then. There were people, let's not even call them people, they were inorganic beings that were large in stature. And archaeologists have come across that. I actually need to get some more water. Okay, number 2, highly advanced in technology and information about the nature of reality. Now, most of the extraterrestrials that show concern over the events on planet Earth, they have highly advanced technologies. In fact, it is known that several presidents, especially in the US, have been approached. I keep stating this specific president, and I'm going to keep stating him every time. President Dwight Eisenhower was reported missing around 2 to 3 o'clock in the morning. And when he arrived back the next day, he told the public, he told the media that he was going to see the dentist at around 2, 3 a.m. in the morning. But a whistleblower stated that no, that actually did not happen. At that time, he did not go to a dentist. He was in actual fact at an Air Force base meeting with extraterrestrials. Okay, so countless presidents have been interacting with these beings. And a lot of that interaction is an exchange of technology. You know, there's always some kind of exchange of technology for human sacrifice. And we're going to get into that even more. And they also provide us more information about the nature of reality as well. If you look at Leonardo da Vinci's story, right, there's a specific time where he was in some kind of field, right, and he came across some kind of interdimensional being that gave him a whole range of knowledge and information. And if you look at his paintings and his artworks, some of them show that he had profound understanding of the human anatomy in a way that, you know, he could not attain with the tools and the technologies they had at that time, which means that he must have gotten some kind of download. He must have received that information from a different realm. Even Alex Jones speaks about it in a podcast that he had with Joe Rogan, where he stated that the Nazis, what they used to do is that they would take this crystal that has a particular form, right, that makes it like show 8th or 9th or 10th dimensions, right? And people would look into that crystal upon intaking large doses of psychedelics. And then they would stare into this crystal, and through staring at that crystal, they would gain access and communication with beings that look like elves. That's what Alex Jones stated. And they were exchanging information about what technologies that they could use, and military weapons, and many more stuff that perhaps we still don't know today. Third, they show involvement in the human genome. Okay, so they are involved with our genetics. They're involved in manipulating and altering our genetics. And it's not only happening now, it's been happening since the beginning of human civilization. They've been splicing DNA and playing around with DNA. It's mentioned in the abduction stories. It's mentioned a lot. Even Credo Mutwa had a story in which he stated that he was abducted while he was in the field, right? It's funny enough, a lot of these abductions happen when people are in like an open spot within nature, right? They took him to some kind of craft and they placed him on some kind of stretcher. And he said he saw like a group of beings. Some were humanoid, some looked like lizards, and some were very short and small in stature. And one of them had sex with him and extracted his semen and played with, they injected him and they extracted some stuff from him, his blood and all. And he reported stating that after that experience, he became bisexual. Yes, you heard me correct. After that experience, he became bisexual. This is something that I stated in the Aliens Are Here video that is available on my YouTube channel. It's also available on Patreon as well. But he basically stated that he became bisexual after that experience. And I stated there that it's clear that these entities, these inorganic beings, show some kind of inclination towards moving us to become asexual and inverting the masculine and feminine energies within the human experience. So by messing up and inverting these energies, they concurrently create a new race of humanity where our DNA is no longer the same, you know. And that is why there's so many abductions that actually occur, because they are actually playing around with DNA. And it's been reported in so many cases where they've had some kind of abduction and the aliens do some kind of experiments on these individuals. And a lot of them report feeling different, having new sensory abilities, having new found physical abilities. and some having their sexuality changed. So most of them don't come back the same. Next, there's a transcendental, or they're beyond this physical dimension. So as I stated before, they don't belong in this dimension of reality. They are actually beyond this dimension of reality. They're actually in a different frequency level that we are not able to perceive. Next, they have an energetic relationship with mankind, meaning whatever state we're in collectively, positive or negative, it has an effect on them. It has an effect on them. So we see it a lot of times when people want to use nuclear weapons. It's been reported by many military personnel and military organizations that somehow, some way, their nuclear weapons got deactivated because upon using that kind of weapon, it can affect not only us, but other dimensions that are existing within the universe. So there's an energetic relationship that they have with us. So whatever happens on this planet affects them. And then they provided aid to humanity through technology, information, and manipulation of the physical world. So if you look at many ancient sites and all, we can clearly see that they were given information, or they were helped, or they were aided in order to accomplish certain things, you know, like if you look at the stones that have constructed the pyramids in Giza, it's actually, it baffles archaeologists as to how they were able to build them in the period of time that they did, because the technologies that they had back then were incapable of performing that. But as I stated before, these technologies have always been there. They were introduced, you know, to our ancestors, and they were able to utilize them. So many people imagine that these depictions were just mythical creatures and tales that are not regarded as real. See, archaeologists, the mainstreamed information, you know, the main broadcasting channels will always tell us this lie that these are just depictions of like the artist's imagination, or they were just being creative, or this was actually just symbolic. No, these were depictions of actual beings. So the deeper you investigate the matter, the more you realize that not only is it real, but they haven't stopped communication and interference with planet Earth. So many regard this as, oh, these are mythical tales that belong to our ancestors, that happened a long time ago. How can we verify that? Those things that were happening then are still happening now. It's just, it's not shown to the general public. The masses do not know anything about it because there's a deliberate plot to ensure that people do not come across this information. You have to seek it out yourself. If you don't seek this information, you will not know anything about it. When people like me speak about it, you will think we are batshit crazy. You're gonna think that we are losing the plot. You're gonna think that we need pills or some kind of psychological help. But you won't know that you are actually jacked into a whole kind of reality that you have no idea that there's so much more going on, but you're hypnotized into seeing a narrowed down version of reality that has been fed to you by the very people that are enslaving you. All right, let's get deeper into who the inorganic beings are. So now the common person will wonder why we cannot see them and why there is no empirical evidence of their existence. So these beings vibrate at a different frequency level compared to ours. So in our normal waking lives, we are unable to perceive them, right? So our perception is locked into the visible spectrum of light, which means we're incapable of seeing realities beyond. So if you have a look at this picture here, that is a human eye, right? So the human eye is able to retain, it's able to capture a very small portion of light, 0.0005%, if I'm not mistaken, of light that we're able to capture. Meaning there are other frequencies, there are other realities that we are incapable of seeing. It's invisible to us through our naked eye, but they are existing. They are there. There are several, multiple, countless realities occurring right in front of us. But because our eyes are not conditioned or designed to see it, it's invisible to us. As you can see, there's the infrared light spectrum, there's an infrared spectrum, there's a microwave spectrum, there's a radio wave spectrum, ultraviolet spectrum, X-ray spectrums, and the gamma ray spectrum. These are all the spectrums of light that we are incapable of capturing with our eyes. So just imagine what's going on all around us. There are beings floating in and out of our environment, some observing you, some just passing by. And there are other things that we cannot even comprehend that's going on right in front of us. But because the eyes have been conditioned a certain way, we are incapable of seeing it. That is why when people take psychedelics, they are opening up certain avenues of the brain that have been closed off. You know, the interesting thing about the brain, ladies and gentlemen, is that it's plastic, right? It's essentially plastic, which means it can reform and remodify itself. So there are certain connections, there are certain portions within the brain that have been suppressed. But upon taking these psychedelics, they're opened now. They're more conductive, and people are able to see things that they would not be able to see with just sober eyes, or eyes that are not conditioned to see. There are many things happening around us. And these beings vibrate at a particular frequency that makes us incapable of seeing them, right? Because they belong to a whole different kind of spectrum of light. But there are moments where there's a glitch in the matrix. There's the glitch in the matrix where the being, the real being, starts to show its real form, and we see it in the visible light. We see them shifting. We see that their form is not the form that is presented to us in our visible light that we're able to capture with our eyes. We see them glitching, and we see their true form. So there are many beings that walk amongst us, ladies and gentlemen, that are not real human beings. This is actually an idea that was portrayed in Men in Black. Do you recall there's a compartment, right? There's a hidden secret basement where extraterrestrials come through, and the Men in Black and those agents ensure that these beings remain hidden from the masses, right? They are not allowed to reveal their true form. Now, this was disguised as just a movie, as just a sci-fi concept, just to be watched and allow ourselves to be entertained by. But for those who have eyes to see and ears to hear, know very well that that is not just entertainment. They are actually showing you what is happening. A lot of these beings exist in our realm already, but they are cloaking, they're masquerading as human beings. They're hiding their true form, so that within the visible light of reality that we're able to capture, when we see them with our eyes, we see a normal human being. Like that's just a normal guy just walking down the street. There's nothing different about him, right? But upon us expanding our awareness and expanding our consciousness and allowing our eyes to capture even more, which is what I'll get into later on, we'll be able to see their true form. We'll be able to see that all 7 billion of us are not human. Not every single individual that looks human is human. Now, I'm not saying that every single person that you come across, you need to be suspicious that you may be dealing with a being that doesn't belong to this plane of existence. Hey, it could be happening, it may not be happening. All I'm showing you is that it is very possible for these beings to do that. And there are countless videos online that you can find that show this reality of beings just shape-shifting, just changing form out of nowhere because there's a glitch, perhaps a technology, perhaps a bandwidth, perhaps the frequencies are becoming less stronger, right? So they're less potent. The frequency is not as strong. So that broadcast that they're demonstrating and portraying to us, to our normal eyes, starts to fade away. It starts to glitch, and then we see their true form. And then the second picture here, it states that feeling is a standing wave, meaning feeling is the magnetic aspect. It's a magnetic charge. So thought is electric. It's an electrical charge. Feeling is a magnetic charge. Okay, so feeling is what creates a standing wave. In quantum physics, a standing wave is known as the perceived physical world, right? So what creates the standing wave is the mental body, the emotional body, and the atomic body, right? So it's basically our thoughts and emotions, right? So we as human beings, right, we operate through several different states of beings, different kinds of feelings, different kinds of emotions. All right, and these emotions then determine what we experience in the perceived reality. And you wonder why, ladies and gentlemen, they want you to live in perpetual fear. You wonder why they want you to live in perpetual fear, because they want your perceived reality to resonate with that. So feeling is a standing wave bubble that pulsates, radiates, and varies, but does not propagate. It corresponds to the state of being we are in and the frequency signature that co-resonates at any given moment with the perceived existing reality's own frequency signature. So the reality we experience is composed through our feeling, our state of being. The perceived reality is always a reflection of the state of being. So they put you in perpetual fear, in states of stress, worry, and anxiety to ensure that your perceived reality demonstrates that. So let's move my screen here. So these are the most commonly mentioned beings that have played a part in the human genome or the Earth experiment. So there are countless, ladies and gentlemen, there are countless beings, extraterrestrial beings, inorganic beings that exist. But there are only a certain amount that have played a part in the human genome. or they play a part in the Earth experiment. So some of them have interbred with human beings to form a hybrid species. Okay, so the first one are the Nordics, right? So it's tall, blonde with